Thank you very much, Vasilius, for that very kind introduction, and very good to see all of you here at this challenging time. On the other hand, maybe it's the best hour of the day since temperature is still a good fit. Very happy to be here. So this is Amsterdam is my home. Living in the east side, I studied here as well, not on the VU, so that's also good to see a bit of here. So about me, and Vasilius told almost everything. I think what I do at IBM. Before joining IBM, I was a student at the University of Amsterdam, where I did a master on what we call in Dutch, sociaal-wetenschappelijke informatica. And I think that study was a bit ahead of its time in the sense that it, from the start, combined looking at all forms of IT in the context of where it is used, who is using it, and that you can adapt from all lenses, whether it's from technology, whether it's from the social context or from the psychology, human side as well. So that's a lens I always took to heart when studying, but also starting at IBM. Now, my first years at IBM, I should say I could not do so much with that context side. I started in the infrastructure, data center, looking at networks, infrastructure. But later in time, I moved from that specialist role into application development, application architecture. And since 2016, very much focused on the data part and also AI. And that, for me, was a very good moment in time, because at that point in time I thought, hey, now I can bring the things from what I studied and what I'm passionate about much more into practice. Now, I also did an MBA at Warwick University, and that was for me also a very good addition towards, next to the academic side, more on the technical part, to learn much more on business context, because that's where I am with IBM and the clients. So today my talk is all from practice. During this week you've learned a lot, and you've heard a lot from more academia and also others. Today I'll talk about what I do on a daily basis. With clients, but also internally in our organization. I'll talk a bit about what IBM does, and that is something you may be familiar with or not, because this company is around for 115 years, and it has transformed itself in those years many, many times. So some of you may know IBM from early inventions in technology. Do you recognize some of it here on the page? Something to call out. Some are very, very old. Some are a bit newer. But you see here a good mix, and you see that while technology is developing, it is also much more, where do we apply it, how do we apply it, and I think that is very good to understand, because technology will evolve and we will keep on inventing. IBM has or invests still annually a big portion in research. It's a very important angle for our company. And next to that, developing technology and the services part. And that's where I am today, working in the IBM consulting part. And it's only when you really apply it where those technologies come to life. What I'll focus on today is the AI part. I've seen on the sketches in the corridors as well. There has been a lot of talks about AI already. What I'll tell you today is how we implement it on a daily basis, and how we also take multiple lenses in that. And it's necessary to take this broad perspective, because AI is, or IT, I should say, is not anymore in the basement of an organization. It's very much part of boardroom discussions, if it's such an organization, or in all functions, in all areas. And that means also that people have to learn much more on what it means from a technology process and all kind of perspectives. So, and leaders have to stand for how they collect data, how they process data, how they use the data in all kind of applications in AI, and that is something new, you could say. Of course, it was coming for a while, but it requires new skills and new perspectives. You can think of the ethics part, but there's also a lot of regulation to be considered. There is the human behavior part, and of course also what does that mean then for my business strategy. It needs, or it calls for a need, that leaders offer room for much more collaboration in the, or I should maybe first that much more dialogue, much more openness in organizations to learn from each other, because you can't do it from one department. You really need to find each other in all kind of ways. And I think giving room to that dialogue, giving room to cross collaboration is one of the most important things you can do as a leader today in your organization. It allows for more cross skilling, more enablement, and that enablement should also be very much encouraged in all the layers. And I think one of the other parts is that we should allow a lot for what can be called bottom-up innovation, or bottom-up inspiration almost, on what you could do in your specific domain with the data and AI that you have at hand. And for the leaders, again, that should that also mean, because it's such a new topic and area, that you should also allow and give some room for experimentation and also for failure, right? Because it's a quite uncertain thing. People have to get acquainted with it, and all people come from their own angle. So giving that space is, I think, one of the most important things. Good. With that, I'll jump into to what I prepared. I already said the technology is something very fascinating and definitely something to be focused on, but it cannot be without the people using it, that innovation, and that is also a bit what I just referred to. It requires a mindset of continuous innovation, but also inclusion, that each of the perspectives in the organization are valued. And I think that's one of the things I for sure see in my organization, and I think it helps to navigate in these times. Now, going to what does it mean then for experts we have in our organization, but also the clients where I work with. It means that, almost every one of us, whether you are let's say a technical expert, moves from what you see here on the left to a situation which is already very much happening, where each of us is using some kind of assistance in your daily work, towards a situation where that will even evolve much more with an agentic way of working, and a collaboration between agents and humans. Now, this is of course not happening all at once. It's something to evolve to, but in some organizations it goes very quick, and in some new organization it starts from the beginning in such a way. While navigating on this path, it is really key to orchestrate that, to coordinate that, to give that a lot of guidance, and I'll talk about that today as well. So when it comes to AI, and that's the first part, and I think that's what ethics really gives us, a vocabulary to talk about what are concerns, what are reasons to use certain things and to not use or to not consider certain things. So, for example, if someone proposes to use AI in a certain context, we ask ourselves a lot of questions, right? Should we do this? Should we do it in this way? And then also, is it leading to the outcome that we intend to have? So this is many times the first starting point, and it starts really early on to ask these kind of questions. And it sometimes means also that to go back to the drawing table and say, hey, maybe this is not a good use case to start using AI now, or maybe not at all. Another element to look at is then, of course, and this is more where I see a lot of the conversations in ethics or responsible AI. Sometimes it's a bit narrow focus. What is then, from a regulatory standpoint, important? Now, in the EU, a lot is happening, has happened already, and comes now into to action. And that is something to consider as organizations, and of course as users and as leaders of the organization as well. My experience with the work that we do is that many of what has been asked from the EU Act is actually something you should in any case want as an organization, right? It focuses on being transparent about what you do, to think through why you're doing things, and also to document that in a very good way. And it also takes very much a risk approach. So for the low risk cases, it's much less effort than for the high risk part. On the other hand, I think it should be more seen as a good practice that you should in any case want and then also comply with. And of course, for larger organizations, this is maybe something more ahead already, and for others catching up a bit. But it is I think very good. There is a structure around this now. How do you inform then if you want this transparency and this documentation? It gets informed by many things that organization considers, and IEEE is of course also here represented, but there is the OECD, there is and the Commission itself with a lot of expert groups that started many years ago. But also organizations themselves on a local level, on an industry level, or within organizations are thinking on, hey, what could be values that fits to our company? Sometimes those values are already there, sometimes people are rethinking them. And it leads to principles, and then from there you can take the next step into how do I implement it then in the products I make or the services I deliver. Now, these elements of responsible AI. And there can be more. I'm not here today to say this is the answer, not at all. But it is a perspective on what you can consider. And here you see 5 of them. diving in to, for example, in each bit. Let me do it different because I don't have the time. Let me dive into, for example, transparency. Transparency is something which sounds like, oh, it's very obvious, I tell what I do, but if you then go underneath, it's quite, it can be interpreted in many ways, and maybe this is obvious for some, maybe it's new to others. But I think thinking about it, how can I be, what is the kind of transparency I would like to give? What are the users expecting to know? And that is something that requires you to think about, okay, who are the key users? What are their needs? And then also what kind of requirements do I ask from other partners in the chain of how we use it? So this is an example of that. While the element shows maybe as a simple statement, behind it is really some work to think, okay, this is the kind of transparency that we can provide at this moment for this use case, very context specific. Now, another example is fairness in this, and fairness is also one where we can talk about a lot, and you should, because this is when it's not driven even by the AI. It was there a question also before, but it raises fundamental questions, and I think that's also a good thing that this technology brings us, that we start thinking about this if not yet already done. And again, if it's a high-risk case, this is even stronger enforced. If it's a low-risk case, it's something you could do in a more standard way. Because I have a lot, I'll just move on to a set of different lenses that you can take as leaders. And one of them, really important, is what is the human and organizational impact of the technology that you introduce in your organization. Now, one of the things you can do, and we do that also in our organization, is think upfront about how your team is, what is the collection in your teams, making it diverse from the start, using an approach like design thinking, and thinking also about do we have as a group, as a team of developers and other people involved, the same values, or have that discussion up front. And of course, also education here is an important one, to have a bit of a level playing field in the enablement before we start. Having this as a kind of prerequisite before you start any project or any development is something we very much recommend. Now, what kind of things do we do then? And this is an example from my colleague, Dasha Simons, who is an expert also in ethics. And it's these kind of exercises that we do in projects, where you could see, where you could ask your team, for example, hey, what are the possible outcomes of what we intend to deliver, and how do we prevent that? And this is an example of where you see that AI can spy on guests and staff. It's an example of an hotel that introduces new technology. And there you can see from those values that we saw earlier, like transparency, explainability, and the compliance part as well. How can we then translate that into, okay, what are the rights that we want to give to our users? And that is what you see here in the second layer. Towards something that we can really give to our developers. Okay, if we feel that this value is very important, then we have to make sure that users have a say and a control about what they share with us. And in our development, we have to have clear opt-in or out mechanism, or they are allowed to delete their data at any point in time. And I think this is just a small example of how you can put these values into a more concrete implementation. Now, from a business and economic value, and of course this is especially in commercial organizations very key, right? What is the value that we get out of introducing this new technology? Now, a lens that we give, and this is not I don't know if it's all readable, it's not the intent, but one way to look at it is, okay, what is our current team look like? And this is an example in IT. So if we have a team working across the software development life cycle, we have certain roles, personas, and if we look at them, what could be the kind of use cases where we can support them in developing certain parts of their work, right? Now that is a lens that you start from the user and from the domain and area where they work in, and from there then propose, okay, these are use cases, these are assistants or assets that we can propose to people to start using. Another way to look at it, and that's more from the value angle, is then first when there is an ID, can we assess that, and can we also identify what are the things that we want to do with it. So here is, for example, it goes to generating a lot of IDs, to prioritize some of the use cases, do a quick MVP or POC, and from there make a detailed use case. Now this is a framework we use quite often to introduce new technology. Then another lens is risk awareness, and risk is very much what drives a lot of the decision making in organizations, and there is a lot of risk at stake when things are not well thought through and guided here, mainly for the high risk cases, but also within your organization with a lot of cases. So the regulatory risk, well, when the AI Act comes in action, but there's already GDPR, there are other things already to consider. There is reputational risk, and this is quite something important. If you don't take care, if you put something out in the market that is very much at stake, but also operational risk, and that is, the more and more we introduce this technology in the mix, the more and more that comes at stake. And of course, within an organization, there is the employee angle, but also very much in the consumer or customer angle if you work in such commercial organizations. Now, these risks elements all should be considered, explained. What is it? What we feel as an organization is important for our users, for our clients, for what we want to consider. And here it's much beyond just what is asked from a compliance perspective, and that's important to understand. What is very key for my organization. We have, and I'll show a bit of framework just to show you that a lot is already very much in use and can also be further standardized. And this is one of the frameworks used to mitigate some of these risks. And many things start with enablement, education, making people aware, making sure that you communicate a lot about what you're doing. And that is something where, yeah, many things start and many things can also go wrong if you don't do it. But then also thinking about what is your operating model about adopting these kind of new technologies, what is the guidance we want to put in place, what if people have questions or things go wrong. And then, of course, also thinking about, hey, what is our structure still a fit for working in a mode where there's much more collaboration between agents and humans, or assisted use of AI in the work. Now, on the right hand, the principles already discussed, but make them very tangible for your specific use case. And then I think what is really key is that it's not a one-off deployment at all here, and that was, of course, with software development, I think never the case, but in this new way of operating, it's even more important that you guide what you produce for a longer time. So it's a continuous guidance that should be there. And that needs to be observed, it needs to be monitored quite well from the beginning, and also make sure that you can intervene if it's needed, right? And not only for a compliance perspective, but definitely also to understand, is it still doing what I intend what I wanted to do? Yeah, so just as an idea that you can make, or as an example that you can make this very concrete. And last year I implemented for a delivery team of over 1,000 people this new way of working, and this is also what we navigated on and made very tangible for everyone. And I can tell you, you learn. Yeah, I think every day, every week, but it helps to put this structure around this and to communicate that you have a structure, because then also people don't feel that, yeah, they feel much more that there is a good support system around this, and they can speak up if something is not working. This is another exercise that we, for example, do in light of getting a good idea of who are our users. For another element of responsible AI, and that's the explainability. Yeah, it's easy to say, yes, it has to be explainable, but then explainable for who, and that explanation can differ a lot if you are a developer or if you are just one person in a whole chain of supply, what you do as an organization. So understanding who is using your system and what is the kind of explanation that we need to provide about our technology is something that we now fully introduce in how we work and how we introduce working with this new technology. And these kind of exercises is what we do very much in the beginning of the cycle. Then last lens that I provide today, that is the technological reality. And here, again, on the top, the risks we already discussed. But with the introduction of Gen AI and also agents, that is something that evolves, right? We had already traditional risks that were out there for a long time, but since the introduction of generative AI, we have to see, okay, what are new risks that should be considered, and now with agentic AI, it's even more kind of risks that we need to consider. And by considering them, we also start to see, okay, can this be mitigated, or should it not be? Is it too high risk to apply it in this case? So this really calls for a continuous monitoring of what is important to consider. And Yeah, and maybe I'll skip this. I will just another one. Guardrails, and this is for software architecture also quite key. We have always had and are developing guardrails, but now with where we combining so much human and agent, it's even more important to consider. Okay, what are the guardrails that we want to put out on that, and you can do that on all kind of levels, whether it's specific towards the models or more on how do we want to orchestrate things. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's just things to consider and as examples, because there is much to consider, and that needs to be done carefully. And also from a tools perspective, that keeps evolving. So here you have to see, okay, is it, can we give a standard, can we put a guardrail there out for our people that are using it? And reference architectures also quite key to use. Nothing changes there, I would say. I'm just slipping a bit because otherwise I won't be able to make the time. But I think this is important. A lot of how we did things still remain, but we need to enforce and we need to adapt it to towards specific the specifics of what we do here. Now, the last part where I focus on is how do you then organize for it, and this has much to do with the adoption of this kind of new technologies for the users, and how do you make sure that that's done in a proper way that fits. And if we look at the current way of the whole software development life cycle, you see that there is still, or there is a lot of room for where you can add certain technologies to make things, to increase speed and to improve the quality. And you can look at what are the parts which are very much manual at the moment, and where can I introduce certain things. You can also look at, these are listed currently as challenges, you could see, but you could also see it as where are the opportunities where I can have a lens with introducing more of the AI assistants and agents. And that has also to do with the flexibility in some of the things that we use. And that is sometimes hard to scale it to a, if we want to combine different environments. And that is, so if you take these three parts as a challenge, then what can you do there? Now, one of the things we think is that we can introduce much more there, much more assistance, but also really think, hey, what can the agents do there, and how can we, with that shift much more to the left, and bring much more automation there. But again, that doesn't go without just that's not just a simple step. You have to introduce that in a proper way with the proper orchestration. And then it could lead to a setup which is much more a combination of human and agents. It also requires that you introduce, or you make sure that the people who are currently the engineers, the architects, that they are also, their role change much more from doing the actual work, much more to monitoring and make sure that it meets the guardrails that you put in place, and that you orchestrate from there. So it changes the roles, and I think in some of the earlier sessions that was already said, and that is something that we should very much help the organizations also to have that in place. Next to the introducing the technologies, working on the skills and looking at the processes, what we always do from the start is to introduce also a governance office, and this is an example. You can have that in a way that it fits for your organization, but definitely think about there is a layer where we have everyone in, and we don't exclude anyone to get introduced to the technologies, to learn how to work with it, and to provide that training. Then also look for people, and especially if you look at very large groups for adoption, who are really enthusiastic, who want to be a real subject matter expert. We pull them out and see, hey, what can we do extra so that you are really enabled. Then also take the top layers, because this is really from both ends, to see, can there set up a council from the beginning where it's the guardrails are developed, the risks are discussed, but also new ideas which maybe require different technologies or different integrations can be discussed at that level. And then, of course, also your leadership top level to take them fully in from an enablement perspective, but also to make sure that the business decisions are still aligned towards what we do and the other way around. This is a model that you can do at a very small, with a very small team, but you can also scale it as it becomes something really embedded in your organization. And I've been using it since the last 1.5 years, and really can say, well, with this you have a kind of framework where people can rely on and also yeah, really on a continuous basis guide everyone. And the kind of things I talked a bit on it, so it's both tactical and strategic. It talks about how are people using the technology, what kind of monitoring do we put in place, but also to develop new guidance, and that is something you need to do on a continuous basis. Then maybe the final part before we have some room for questions. If you're thinking about a larger adoption of technology, which is on the minds of many people, think about that you don't do that just or I should start different. I think it's very good that we give the tools to the people at their hands, because there is where the work happens, there is where the domain knowledge is, and that is where the experimentation and a lot of the innovation happens in each of the domains. I think with that comes that you make sure that everybody is also really skilled to be able to use it. And that you also together really build a community that supports this new way of working. That you have a way in place that you can measure what you intend to reach with it. If you have an objective to be more productive, be clear on that, communicate on that, and then you can also put the monitoring on that. If you have another objective, also be clear on that, and that helps to really drive adoption in a larger way. But it's good to consider these things from the beginning. And with such a model that never ends, you can adopt all kind of new technologies, and I think that's the where I would like to close it from this first part. There are a lot of practices that you can do, and this is just some of the things that I learned over the last year, and where I did a bit of talking. Maybe what I didn't really called out yet is the motivation and recognition. Of course, this is really a transformation or a changed way of working for many people, and it is important to keep also the motivation on that people take the effort to change definitely as part of how you introduce these things. Good. This is yes, was you good? Fine with that. Good. So these were some things from my daily practice, and there is room for questions if you have. So